usual, by Richard Migliore.
A short but sweet Trips and Traps.
Yes, it is. It's actually a beautiful day here at Belmont as we film the show. We're going to look at 3 races from last week, and we're going to start with a couple of races from Friday's card. The third race on Friday's card, a maiden claiming race on the inner turf at 1 1/16, and a horse, Tizador, the 3 for John Sheriffs, and those familiar Zenyatta Silks, a horse that was making its first start on the turf, and both of us feel like she ran a lot better than it may look.
Yeah, broke a stutter step slow. Got squeezed a touch, maybe about 70 yards out of the gate. Got a little keen here. You can see she flips her head. Junior Alvarado falls back on her. I just don't think she ever got in a comfortable rhythm or had any position to take advantage of what run she had.
I completely agree with you, Richie, and this is a classic example of a horse that spends a majority of the race losing her position. She broke a little slow, as you said. She stayed a little bit, but now she's in a reasonable spot where she can get her position, and it feels like she just continues to lose that position. Now, I thought when I was watching the race the first time, maybe Junior just has no horse. She doesn't like the turf, and she's going to back up and get beaten 30 lengths. But it does not turn out to be the case, so it makes me wonder why she continued to lose position, even more so from here, Richie.
Well, absolutely. When she was in front of that group of 3 horses, and now the 4 horses gotten inside of her and gone on, the horse on the outside, you've got to maintain that position in front of them. Don't let them swallow you up. Now she's getting passed to the inside, and she's going backwards at a point in the race when you're supposed to be going forwards. And now she's basically got a hand dealt to her because he didn't take any initiative.
Absolutely, and she's behind the heavy favorite, the 2, and the eventual winner, the 4. So she had the position in front of them, and it's not as though she was doing so much less work. Back here, you almost feel like she's going to be last, but actually, she rallies, and she rallies in some traffic, and it doesn't feel like she's being aggressively pushed forward at some points.
Well, even here, it looks like he has to make a decision and either commit to continue to go forward or don't even point for the spot to begin with. And I think he was anticipating the horse just outside of him. I believe that's number 8, lugging in. But you can't be a little bit pregnant. If you make that decision, you have to completely commit to it. You cannot go there and say, well, maybe I'm going to get there, because then you're never going to get there.
Yeah, no, it's a very interesting point. It just feels like Tizador's a horse that ran better in her turf debut. Her dirt races were a disaster. I think she had 1 dirt race, and she can't run at all. She ran a lot better in here. And John Sheriff sticks around through Aqueduct. I'd love to get one more chance to take a shot with this horse.
But the problem is that she was 27-1 this day. Do you get that price again? And I think you would agree with this. I don't think anybody was beating the winner, Enthusiastic Gal. But she very well could have been second.
Richie, she only lost second by 3 lengths. When you consider the way the race was run, she easily could have been second. Now, she was 27-1 in this race, partly because the second-place finisher, Todd Pletcher's horse, was 1-2. So that ballooned everybody. You kind of take her out of the race, and she's like a 12-1 shot in here. I don't know about you. I'd be very happy to get around 8 to 12-1 on her if she runs in a similar type race in her next start. And don't forget, it won't include Enthusiastic Gal, the winner.
All right, well, do me a favor, though, when she runs, because you know I'm bad at this. Remind me when she's in.
You'll be the first person that I'm going to call as soon as I see that horse is running. We're going to go right ahead to the 4th race, the same day, October 16th, and look at a horse I know Richie was rooting for, a first-time star of the 6, Henrik Rules, a horse who I think we both agree was best, but once again, a horse that cost himself the race.
Yeah, and you said it best earlier to me when we were talking about it. He was his own worst enemy. He broke slowly like a first-time starter may want to, and this is a horse that had very impressive workouts. And then, where I think he was even more his worst enemy, he didn't settle. He just wanted to get it on, and he's basically running off with Javier Castellano, and he does so much early in the race, and particularly the second quarter. It was, for him to hang around as long as he did, I think was impressive, and pointed out that this is a horse with a lot of ability.
No, I agree, and I think Javier realized I'm probably making a move that I'm not going to be able to win with. But once again, if he fights the horse and he grabs his head and he pulls him back, he might run 6th in here, and he thought, my only chance to be effective here is to let him roll, and it looks like he might win for a little while.
Yeah, I mean, because he did actually get comfortable after the first 3/8 of a mile where he got in a good rhythm. It's not like driving a car, too, though. I just don't know that Javier would have been able to hold this horse anyway. He just seems so intent on going forward. And with those fast works, he's shown in the morning that he's an aggressive kind of a horse. I think a horse with a lot of ability. Now, you hope that the gate thing was just because he's a first-time starter and not something that's going to be chronic.
I have a question for you. How much do you worry that a horse is really ready to win its first start, and for whatever reasons things don't work out, that the next time it runs is not going to be as fully cranked up for that race, that sometimes they take a step forward. It can work both ways.
Well, I think it's an interesting question. I think it goes back to connections. I mean, the guys that have horses at their very best for the first time, and guys that, frankly, their horses usually need a run or two. Now, this horse was cranked up because his works said he was cranked up, but, I don't think Carl's a guy that basically points
Carl
for
Domino,
Carl Domino. I'm sorry, yeah, that, points for their first start. So I believe that this horse will go forward, and I think again we just got to go back to the gate works. How many gate works did he have leading up to it? That's something I should have researched a little better. I don't like when a horse has more than 2 gate works on their tab before they run.
Because it shows they have gate issues and they're working on them.
If they're working 3-4 times out of the gate, they're not breaking well in the morning.
But the thing is, I think a lot of firsters that don't break that well, most of the time they get over it fairly quickly. It doesn't become a chronic habit.
Usually it's a learning curve, no doubt.
Hopefully that'll happen with Hendrick Rules because he can run that horse. This was a decent race, and the winner ran okay too, but Hendrick Rules may have been the best horse. We're going to talk about the 7th race from October 17th, and this is one that got a lot of people's attention because Jack's Heritage, the favorite, got in a lot of visible trouble. Larry Colmus was talking about it quite a bit in his call. We want to talk about Jack's Heritage, but we also want to talk about another horse that'll get a lot less attention, a much lower profile horse, a long shot, the 5 Snake Oil Charlie. They had very different trips, but they both had legitimate trouble.
Yeah, they both had horrible trips. And it's funny. When I watched it last night, I was kind of thinking that the obvious Jack's Heritage had the worst trip. And I will make the point that he stayed in the bridle, especially if they're checking so severely here. Most horses will spit the bit at some stage. The fact that he continued to stay in the bridle and made multiple runs into traffic tells me, yeah, you know what? He may have been best on the day, but what you're pointing out about Snake Oil Charlie really shows how much this horse ran extremely well and will be overlooked.
That's the thing. He has a low-profile connections. He's always a big price, and everybody was talking about Jack's Heritage, who is a bit of a rail runner. So I think the fact that we know that he's been comfortable on the inside in the past makes me feel like the trouble wasn't as exaggerated because he's a horse that, for whatever reason, has shown an amount of comfortability running inside of horses. So, and the fact that he saved ground, listen, I'm not denying that all things being equal, he should have won the race. That's inarguable.
On this day, I think, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying that he also saved a lot of ground, and he's going to be a short price next time. I don't want obvious trips horses at short prices. I want a horse like Snake Oil Charlie.
Well, I think this is the polar opposites. One is as glaring a bad trip as you're going to get.
Here is inside, here's Snake
Ray
Oil.
Charles can see he had a bad trip.
Right.
Where Snake Oil Charlie had much more subtle trouble. He's kind of buried back there. People aren't paying attention to him because they're watching Jack's Heritage check all over the place. And now he's going to start making a run, Snake Oil Charlie. Let's take our attention off Jack's Heritage for a moment.
I want to run the gallop out, guys, too, if you can.
And now he runs out of room there and steadies and checks and comes out over heels, and then he finishes again. The thing that impressed me about Jack's Heritage was the fact that he had a steady multiple times and he kept getting back in the bridle. That tells you horses a lot of run on their mind. But no denying Snake Oil Charlie had as bad a trip in some respects.
And here he is galloping out past the entire field. But I agree very much what you said about Jack's Heritage. I think it's a very good point. We want to show ahead on some of the backstretch so Richie can show the exaggeration. He never got intimidated. He kept going forward no matter how much trouble he had, and that's a good sign.
Oh, that's a great sign. And as a jockey, and we're going to keep an eye on, watch the position of his head. He doesn't just check. Look how his head's turned towards the infield.
Wow.
And he's completely off stride, completely off balance. And I mean, he's basically lucky he didn't trip himself. When a horse turns their head that much, they're very prone to crossing legs. It's pretty remarkable that he was athletic enough to be able to jump back in the bit and want to go forward again.
And also, Joel Rosario is riding him. He never got intimidated, and he never grabbed him and dragged him out of the race. He actually would gather him up, but continue to move forward. I think it's a tribute to the ride he gave him. He was a bit unlucky, and the fact is, Jack's Heritage drew the rail, and his fate in a lot of ways was sealed at the draw.
Yeah, because he never had any opportunities to find any other, path out to the clear. And like you were saying, maybe he doesn't want to be in the clear anyway. And if you watch the head on the stretch, no hole really ever presented itself. They stayed pretty much together.
Oh, he never had a fair chance to get out. There's no doubt about that. An interesting race, but keep in mind, Snake Oil Charlie, lower profile connection, bigger price. He had a trip as well, but Jack's Heritage did too. That does it for this week's Trips and Traps. We can always use your help. It's Trips and Traps at NYRank.com.